Okay, so we are here this evening for our first Google Hangout Dharma class with Lama Tashi Dunrup and myself. I'm Davy Ward, and we're getting started a little bit early just to see if we can get the question and answers uploaded and that feature active for all of the participants. So just give us a couple minutes here while we get our technical stuff figured out, and then we will begin our Dharma class and our teaching for everybody. We're very excited about this. Let me see if I can get that. No, it's disabled, and I don't know how to enable it. Okay, so apparently I can't enable the question and answer, so I do apologize for that. I thought it was enabled, but we will try and get that sorted. If you do have questions during this broadcast, I'm going to invite you to send them to info, I-N-F-O, at tantricartsoflove.com, tantricartsoflove.com, and they will come into my inbox, and I will be able to access them on my phone while we are doing this broadcast. So if you have a burning question and it's driving you insane and you must ask this question, go ahead and send it to info at Tantric Arts of Love, and we will make sure that it gets presented to Lama Tashi for you. Let me just make sure that he is as visible as we want him to be. You're presenting. You're there. Everything's good. Okay. It's 6:29. We'll give it 60 more seconds, and then we'll begin on time. Broadcasting live from, I'm in Washington State, and Lama Tashi is in Kauai, Hawaii, and he is the founder of the Kauai Dharma Center. You can find out more at kauaidharma.org. Okay. All right. So, here we go. Lama Tashi, you're on.
First, I'd like to say in Hawaiian, aloha. Aloha is the greeting in Hawaii that extends the heartfelt appreciation for each other to everybody. It is also the word for love. Then in Tibetan they say Tashi Delay. Tashi Delay is their greeting which wishes everybody the best, good fortune, and auspicious circumstances for their spiritual growth and good health. So those two words, aloha in Hawaiian and Tashi Delay in Tibetan, sum up the Dharma. The Dharma is a word for the Buddha's teaching. The Dharma is also a word for energy, or what appears, both in the world and in the mind. So tonight we're going to cover those topics based on those two words. First, I would like to start tonight's teaching with what is called the refuge, which puts everything in perspective according to spiritual practice in this tradition. Called in Lama Dampa Nam La Chapsu Chiyo Yedam Chokor Gi Latso Nam La Chapsu Chiyo Sanjay Chong Dende Nam La Chapsu Chiyo Tampe Chur Nam La Chapsu Chiyo Kawo Kandro Chokyo Shume Sho Ishe Ki Shendang Genpa Nam La Chapsu Chiyo. Nam La Chapsu Chiyo, that phrase attached to each line of this refuge prayer simply means we all together join in spiritual practice, accomplishment, and anything that benefits everybody and helps us to become mature as human beings. And then we extend the benefit of that, we use the word merit, to all living beings. So we categorize the living beings in our world as, for instance, the human beings on this planet. Also the animals and spirits. We extend this benefit to them and to the natural environment. And we also extend the benefit of our practice to the spirit world, which pervades the entire universe. So these three classes, the spirits, the animals, and the humans, are the motivation for our practice. When we do these practices, we are actually entertaining, by communicating, what is obvious in our relative condition, but also what is not apparent in our spiritual condition. We use the word ultimate, or sometimes supreme. But supreme doesn't mean supernatural. Supreme means natural but better than, or sometimes we use the words extraordinary. So when we approach the subject of spirituality using this tradition, we have many aids, or as we know on the iPhone, apps. Apps is a word for application. So tonight we're going to cover the application between the relative, which we all know as how we perceive things through our senses, and how we think about what we are perceiving. This is called the mental application. And then, because of those two, how we emotionally react. And this emotionality reaction is a habit. And this habit has been instilled in the mental process in for sentient beings, animals, humans, and spirits, over the period of many thousands of lifetimes. So the idea of lifetimes brings us to the necessity for what we call the Dharma. In approaching this subject also, we take into consideration our situation as not always happy. So we have happiness, but we also have pain and suffering. And for most of us, we're alternating between those two. So when we define the absolute aspect of our consciousness, we are talking about a situation where the pain and suffering does not exist. When the Buddha 2,600 years ago introduced the Dharma through his forms of communication, which were mostly by speech, the introduction was based on this idea of pain and suffering. But he also said, if you're going to accept this as part of your state of being, you must also accept and know the cause of this. But not only should you know the cause of pain and suffering, you should know the cause of happiness. So we're going to cover that topic also. Then these practices that we are introducing are actually methods of healing. So you can think of what we are talking about tonight as a healing program. And then through this method of healing, we have some accomplishment. The accomplishment is twofold. One, on the relative situation of how we are as ordinary sentient beings, is how does this increase our physical good health and well-being? How does it improve our relationship? How does it overcome mental dysfunctions, such as neurosis and psychosis? And how does it help to stabilize these emotional energies which habitually occur simply from our being here in a form body, for instance, as human beings? Then the other aspect that we're going to introduce and talk about tonight is on the basis of what most of you are already practicing, called Tantra. Tantra is a word used to indicate merging. Merging means weaving or bringing together. When we use this word Tantra, we usually refer to it, especially in the Western connotation, as sexual Tantra. This form of Tantra is extraordinary as being practiced in both the Eastern cultures and the Western culture. And it's extraordinary in its application that it's only available to certain human beings, men and women, or just individually, that have the ability, have the good karma, is a better word, have a spiritual and mental capability to integrate these techniques into their life, and by doing that, improve not only their relationships, but their levels of awareness and their good health. The other aspect of Tantra that we're going to talk about tonight is the spiritual aspect. And in the Eastern cultures, this is referred to as a vehicle. So we have the vehicle of the relative or ordinary, and we have the vehicle of the ultimate or extraordinary Tantra. The relative one I've just explained. The ultimate one is simply to integrate the ordinary one, the relative one, the way we already are, as based on the 5 elements. The 5 elements is an application of remedies that uses the earth, water, fire, air, and space of our phenomenal world as it is incorporated into our human body to bring into a situation of harmony through certain methods, sex being one of them, good health. Also, mental, clearing mental dysfunctions, such as the inclination to act abusively or harmfully, and also to help to stabilize the emotional energy. When we talk about the emotional energies, that's where we move into the area of spiritual Tantra. In order to do this, one must have some basic qualities, just like you do with the sexual application practices of the ordinary Tantra. These are simply, one, first of all, must have the inclination to both spiritually and mentally to expose themselves or to connect, like you are tonight, with this, with the teacher. And in this tradition, it is important for the teacher to have teachers. So you're not really receiving the teacher from one Lama Tashi, you're receiving this teaching from many teachers who are Lama Tashi's teachers. And that introduces what we call a lineage. This lineage is unbroken in a series of transmissions of teacher to students for the last 2,600 years, from Shakyamuni Buddha in India and all the teachers of India, which culminated in introducing these practices to the Himalayan regions, from Afghanistan to Nepal and Bhutan. And also the transmission was carried into Tibet, Mongolia, Eastern China, and other areas. But now we have it in the West. Actually, it's available worldwide. Just like this transmission tonight, we've gone global. When you talk about ordinary sexual relationships, we're talking about defining what is healthy in those relationships, particularly sexually, functioning that way. And so we base this on that form of Tantra with the 5 elements. And as Jock and Davy has introduced you to these practices, they themselves have accomplished these practices. So the transmission that you are receiving from them is based on their practice. The transmission that I presented to them, they know that I base that on my practice. So we're not sending you information secondhand. We're gaining first-hand experiences from these practices and then sharing them with you, but in a special manner. And the manner is that it is based on an aspect of the human condition, sort of like the mother for the children. It's based on loving kindness and consideration for others and our environment.
So can I interrupt you?
With loving kindness, we move into the state. Yes?
I have a question for you. So just wanting to clarify, Lama Tashi, so the motivation for practice is loving kindness and compassion.
Yeah.
And then you were also saying that part of the result of doing Dharma and Tantra practice is having better health and emotional stability and clearing mental blockages.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Just clarifying.
Yeah, so we want to approach all of this as methods of good health and also methods that produce a mature human being.
What does that mean? I have one more question, sorry. What does mature human being mean?
Okay, so here we are in a state of evolution where for thousands of years we've been in this human condition, slowly evolving to the state that we are today. But in the process of this evolutionary process, the human race, the individuals, regardless of their age, have not matured emotionally.
Okay, good.
So because of that, which is a habit connected to their mental process and their relationship with the planet, we are in a state of jeopardy. This should be the case. For thousands of years we've been evolving, we should be in a state of complete harmony with the planet and the beings on it. So when I'm talking about maturity, I'm talking about that kind of maturity that assures the well-being of everybody on the planet, animals, humans, and the environment.
Thank you.
This is important because all of us here are happy. And most of the humans on the planet aren't finding happiness. They're finding it a situation where it's not only life-threatening, but their survival is in jeopardy. And this is being applied to large numbers of people, and not just in one area, but all over the globe. So I think, personally, that these practices are about not only becoming mature, but becoming mature so that we survive, that this human condition carries on for many more generations on this planet. And that in the process, the people are happy and healthy. Then there's another aspect of the human condition which is unique. This is not available to animals or spirits. Even the highest celestial beings cannot accomplish what I'm going to talk about. And this is that the nature of our consciousness is not just the relative nature. We have another nature in our consciousness which is extraordinary because it is pure. And that pure means it's unconditionally applied, and it is altruistically presented. Altruistically means impartially presented to everybody. And that pure nature doesn't have what we like or what we involve ourselves with as human beings, in a word, drama. So actually, the word Dharma is an antidote to drama. So when you move into this experience or move into this other area of consciousness, which you do in sexual activity, it's called the orgasmic experience or bliss. This experience of consciousness doesn't allow one to think. If you don't think, you can't have emotional reaction. And in that state of consciousness, you are pure, you are mature. And the reason being is because you're not involving yourself with the drama that produces pain and suffering. Well, if there's no pain and suffering, then there must be pleasure and bliss or joy. So that aspect of your consciousness is, in a word, enjoyable. We use the word enlightenment, but that's a stretch, because that's a scientific term based on the aspect of light and space being the same thing, which we use the terminology energy. But energy is what these practices are utilizing. And the ability to use these energies has some rules. The first rule, which is very important, is the one that you must be able to hold your attention on something, one thing, for long periods of time. This is called the ability to focus.
Okay, can I ask a point about focus, Lama Tashi?
Yes.
Because a lot of people strain to focus, right? And when you say hold your attention on one thing for a period of time, does that mean like you don't have any other thoughts at all, or you've got to like hold real tight, or when you focus, like how do you focus and be able to do that like in a way that feels good and isn't a strain and you're not forcing something?
By practicing it.
Okay.
Okay, on the outer level of the ability to focus, this word is tied to what is called awareness. The awareness means that if you're awake, you have awareness of your surroundings. If you're in a situation in a city, for instance, this outer awareness is very important so that you follow the rules that keep you alive in the city. For instance, not texting while walking across the street. For instance, it's a survival thing. So this focus on the outer level is very important. I learned it at a very young age by being exposed to living in wild surroundings. And by that, the focus, the awareness, kept me alive, but also made my outer surroundings pleasurable. This same application of focus is called, in common terms, yoga or meditation. But meditation is actually more drama. The reason that it's more drama is because you're using the focus of the meditation in the ordinary sense of the mind being connected to an object. This is where the problem starts in the area that we call pain and suffering. Because of this focus or lack of focus, one has what is called a subject-object dichotomy. That means they believe that they exist separately from whatever they're sensing. And this is simply an idea, and it's counterproductive, is the best way to say that. This idea of existence or separation between the subject and object is the actual cause of the emotional tendencies arising. such as anger, pride, jealousy, attachment, even ignorance. Ignorance actually means the idea of separation. Why do we say it's ignorant? Because there is no separation between us and anything else. Everything that we are involved with is interconnected to us. If everything is interconnected to the individual, how can there be a subject and object? Well, that's because we, over time, have generated that idea. So in focus, you're making an attempt to take the subject and object dichotomy, or the idea of separation, out of your situation. And that is very, very practical. And that is the basis for all yoga and meditation, and especially in the sexual tradition of tantric yoga. For instance, one must have the ability to focus on the breath. One must have to focus on the ability of the energy of themselves or the other person that they're involved with. Then through focus, you must be able to sustain that energy for a certain period of time. And this accomplishes what is called simply the joy, or resulting in the pleasure of bliss generated by the energy through the individual focusing. So that is actually one of the rules of Tantra. I was first introduced to it as a young child because of the wild places that I was in, and finding food in those places, this was necessary. But in common days, this focus is about how to be aware of what's going on, not just outside of you, but in your mind. And that kind of focus, you need to be able to be able to do that on a personal level. And in this way, you're actually turning your energy away from what's going on with others to what's going on with you. What's going on in your mental process? What's going on in your physical situation, your body, for instance? What's going on in your connection to the natural environment, which, as I said, was the earth, water, fire, air, space element, which we use by focusing in our tradition of both the relative Tantra and the ultimate Tantra. Any question?
So, to recap, the number one rule to practicing Tantra is the ability to focus the mind.
Yes.
Single-pointedly focus awareness.
Yeah, so this moves your attention away from everything else.
Okay, so that you can be fully present with whatever your experience is.
Present is the best word.
Okay, so then I have two questions. So number one, what is Tantra exactly? Like, what is it? Because it's more than the sexual practice. So what, expand upon what Tantra is in this lineage, the whole package.
Okay, now we're taking it to the other level of consciousness, which we're not aware of. We're experiencing it, and by these experiences, we're having good health, for instance, and in some cases, individual psychic powers start to arise that people weren't aware of in their consciousness or in their situation before, and also in their relationships with each other. So that is the accomplishment of the Tantra on the relative level. On the ultimate level of Tantra, in our form of our tradition, it's called Vajrayana Buddhism. Vajrayana Buddhism means that you accept the path of being a mature human being, and the term for that is called bodhisattva. Because you're involving yourself with that idea, bodhisattva, you're using practices that not only take away the idea of separation, that is self and objects or self and others being separate, but you're also applying 6 basic methods. And these 6 basic methods of this ultimate Tantra, higher tantric path, it is called the bodhicitta. Now, bodhicitta is a word applied from the word Buddha, which means pure. Or another word is blissful or clear of emotionality. When you apply this aspect of your consciousness, these 6 basic conditions start with the first one, and you actually make a commitment to this, is generosity. That means everything that you are developing from this point on, you are not only applying to yourself, but you are doing it in order to benefit others in the environment. So the generosity is applied on both the relative and ultimate levels of existence. The second of these methods is called morality. Morality means the end of abuse towards yourself, others, and the environment. When you
Wait,
yeah.
Lama, could you say that one more time? Because that was really profound. Morality is the end of abuse.
Yes, abuse, which means abuse of the self, intentionally or unintentionally, abuse of others, which can go to the extreme of what we call psychotic behavior, not just neurotic, and the end of abuse of the environment, which is what we call environmental damage or toxic indications caused by the human condition. So that form of morality doesn't necessarily apply to the religious sense of being good or bad, because one person's good is another person's bad. So you have to be very aware when you apply morality, but simply it's the end of abuse. Then morality also includes ethics. Now, ethics applies to many spiritual applications. For instance, monks and nuns in our tradition have a code of ethics, a very large code of ethics, actually. But it also applies to the state of the householder. That's the layperson, and it also applies to people who are tantrikas. Now, that's our topic tonight. So we have human beings that are involving themselves with tantric practice on both the relative and, as I'm explaining tonight, the superior or extraordinary level. But when you move into the extraordinary level, you must have patience. So that patience is with the habits that you've generated already, which are either abusive, harmful, or dysfunctional. So you must have patience because we're in a time sequential situation. In temporal existence, we have time, past, present, and future. But on the ultimate level, patience is also applied to timelessness. Now, timelessness is an indication of something that we're experiencing on the relative level, and I might apply this experience more to women than men, and that is the orgasmic experience of sexual activity. In that experience, there is no subject-object dichotomy. But on the ultimate level, this aspect of patience is applied to slowly adapting, is a good word, to a nature of consciousness where there's no drama. So 7 billion humans, they think the only game in town is drama. But there are a few human beings, I wouldn't say a number, but thousands, at least thousands, who are not into the drama program. They actually purposely withdraw into this other nature for short or long periods of time. And it's very healthy. It's actually very practical, but that requires patience. The next method that one applies as a bodhisattva is called perseverance. That means this isn't done just once in a while. This is done on a daily basis, and actually what you are doing is being integrated into whatever kind of lifestyle you have, spiritual or ordinary. But of course, if you're practicing higher Tantra, which we call ultimate Tantra, that would be called spiritual. So your spiritual practice is being integrated to your ordinary state of existence. The next level, or what we call the fifth level, beyond perseverance, is called what we already talked about, the ability to focus. That's called meditative concentration, or single-pointed concentration. And when we move into that method, now we're talking about meditation and yoga as applied physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And these 5 basic methods are incorporated in the path of the Bodhisattva to bring that individual to the experience of the natural state, the pure nature of their mind or consciousness as useful. When they do that, the altruistic compassion and the unconditional love modes start to arise spontaneously. Why is that? It's because that's the nature of the human condition. That's why we have so many humans on the planet today. So this aspect of unconditional love actually is an antidote to what we usually refer to as romantic love. It doesn't mean it replaces it. It just means it gives the individual an alternative of interaction with themselves and others.
Could you talk a little bit about that, Lama Tashi, unconditional love? What that is? What that could be, described as?
Okay. If you apply it in relationship, for instance, I'm a married Lama. I was a monk, and I did practice for long periods of time as a monk to stabilize these various energies, physical, mental, emotional. But in the process, I developed an unconditional relationship with myself, not with my ego, not with the idea of an entity actually existing. And in that state, I started to appreciate this appreciation that I was having for myself as a state of unconditional love. By experiencing it that way, after being a monk for a long time, I decided that layperson was more appropriate. Then, in that situation, now I'm involved with being who I am, the alternate sex, the opposite sex. So, I found that in relationships with others, that unconditional love was working way better not to produce drama than romantic love. Does that explain it?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's an
that's it.
relationship that we have with our ultimate self.
Correct. So now you're actually generating a superior state of being, which is where we come up with the word mature. So I can give you a good example. One of my teachers, which is very well known, the Dalai Lama. Now the Dalai Lama is a monk, and he'll tell you that's just who he is. He's just a monk. But the Dalai Lama doesn't function like the idea of a monk. He's not in seclusion, for instance. He's exposing himself to everybody in every tradition and every level of social interaction. And when he does that, he's very happy about it. And it really isn't about him. It's always about everybody else. That's his expression of unconditional love. And he is a bodhisattva. And he is always practicing these basic 6 methods. But he is also practicing ultimate Tantra. And that is a stretch for the human tradition of Tantra in the Western world, because he's not doing it with a sexual partner.
Or even himself. He's not even
with himself. So you have 2 forms of ultimate Tantra. One with yourself and one with others. But again, unconditional love is an aspect of the pure nature of your mind. It doesn't exist in the relative situation. It won't work on most levels in the relative situation. It doesn't sell products, for instance. So on that level, you have to that's where the word Tantra really starts to make sense, because you're integrating these two aspects of your consciousness without outwardly appearing different.
Yeah.
Like, I've been here in Hawaii 21 years. The way I look now is pretty much the way I've looked for 21 years. Of course, much older. But other people, they don't know. They don't know Lama, Tashi. They just see me as a, ordinary person. And the Dalai Lama kind of presents himself that way, but in reality, he's not an ordinary person. He's very extraordinary. And you can see that come out in his activities, in his relationships. So these 6 methods of this application of the idea of a bodhisattva is actually bringing the human individual very, very fast to maturity. And the accomplishments that come out of these 6 modes or methods are extraordinary. People are not only bettering themselves physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, but they're allowing aspects of capabilities that were hidden the other way now start to manifest. And you, Davy, and Jacques, as teachers, have found this to be true, correct?
Absolutely. I am not the same person today. Well, you should know, Lama Tashi, you knew me 6 years ago when I started. I'm not the same person today that I was back then. Life has continued to blossom and open. My talents have emerged. I remember when I first started this path, one of the things that you said, or a few of the things that are signposts that the practice is working, is that I will suffer less, that my relationships with others will improve, and that I'll get happier and healthier. And even though, of course, I still suffer, because I'm not enlightened, I can say that my suffering has diminished, I'd say, by a good 70%.
Well, if that's what you get out of it, we would wish that for everybody.
We wish it for everybody.
So that's the unconditional love working as altruistic compassion. But these living examples of how this is working takes us out of the religious context of what we call faith-based. In other words, we're trusting that these methods work. We apply them by practicing them ourselves, and then gradually we start to experience the benefit or the result. And because the benefits are so extraordinary on the human level, we extend these to others automatically. I use the word spontaneously. For instance, this broadcast tonight, this form of communication, which, by the way, is a first, at least for me. And how it is a first is that we are communicating to so many people simultaneously, most of whom never had experienced the availability of this form or method of practice. So just what we're doing tonight is a perfect example of the benefit of these 6 methods of this path of bodhisattva.
So can I pause you for a minute, because I just want to recap. So what you're saying in all of this, some people probably already get this, but just in case you don't. So it's a practice. So Tantra, essentially, or any spiritual practice, is exactly that. It's a practice. It's something that awareness needs to be cultivated. It needs to be cultivated on an ongoing and daily basis in order to get the results. It's not you wave a magic wand and you're fixed. It's a cultivation.
I can't give you awareness.
You can't give me awareness. Exactly. Yeah. It's something that I have to grow inside myself or awaken inside myself.
Correct.
Yes.
But that innate nature is waiting to be awakened in every human being.
I love that.
And only human beings can do this. As I said, gods and goddesses of the spiritual religious tradition cannot accomplish this. They have to wait and come back into the human condition to benefit from these methods. That doesn't mean they're not having a good time where they are. It's just that they're terminal, just like us. Nothing in this universe is permanent. On that basis, our own condition being impermanent, we do these practices in time, all the time, because of that. So that as we leave this body, which can be a very slow or very fast process, we experience that in a very unusual way as the simple process of your consciousness re-emerging with the universe itself. The universe is totally aware. And in this state of awareness, that's the nature of our base, of our consciousness. But we confuse it with mind. So the category of mind is simply the human condition as it is experiencing through the senses, thinking, and the emotional reaction process. But in the pure process of consciousness, which is the nature of the universe, none of that applies. You cannot take this third-dimensional aspects of being into the fourth dimension of timelessness, into the aspect of a boundless, centerless space. You just can't do that. So space and the pure consciousness are actually merging. But in space you also have light, so that light, space, and consciousness are merging. The light brings clarity into your processes. That infinite aspect of space, infinite light, is now shining into your mental, physical, and emotional situation. And it clears it up. It just does it unconditionally. It does it spontaneously. We call it spontaneously arising wisdom.
So
Yes.
just by doing the practices, you get the results. Like, you don't have to know what all your suffering is or all your, negative emotions are. Just by doing the actual meditation practice or Dharma practice or whatever practice it is you're doing, just by doing it, you get the result.
Correct. And you understand at the same time that you are becoming extraordinary. How are you becoming extraordinary is in comparison to others that are ordinary. Now, in that situation, you have to be very, very careful not to become arrogant or proud of your accomplishment. Just because you've moved into a relative or ultimate situation of being extraordinary, that's where we could say you have to apply these newfound aspects of being. You must share them with everybody else, and you must use them to correct the imbalances in our natural environment. But each of us has their own way of doing that. So you're not losing your individuality, you're actually increasing its application. And that makes it extraordinary.
So can we do a meditation? We've been talking about these methods. Can we do some?
Well, having covered the 6 methods of the Bodhisattva, yes, that would be appropriate.
Okay.
And by the way, all spiritual traditions of the planet are valid towards moving towards this idea of maturity. And it also makes the living, what we call the leaving the body process and the next life more fun, a lot more enjoyable. So it's not just an application of the present, even though it's applied to the present moment to moment, but it's also an application for your future. Now, I might say to all the people watching this tonight that your situation is admirable. But more than that, your future looks really good. Because like when you put software into a computer, the information that you are receiving tonight on both the relative and spiritual ultimate levels is not going to go away. It's going into your hard drive, and it's going to be there for a long time. And this is why I say, my congratulations to you. Your future looks really good. Based on that, let's do a practice. Short tea break. Now, my teacher in Honolulu, his name is Lama, who has been my teacher since 1977 and helped us to set up these programs we call Dharma centers on all the islands in Hawaii and other places. He helped me with what is called our temporal situation of not having enough time, especially in the Western world. So I said, well, these practices require time, and I'm really busy. I have all these other things that I need to do. And he says, well, why don't you just drive a wedge into your 24-hour day and kind of reprogram it? For instance, you have to have time to eat, you have to have time to sleep, you have to have time for work, but you also have to have time for leisure activity. So this idea of leisure activity is where we bring in the Dharma. So your qualifications for practice are not just to have the ability and inclination. You must also have the leisure time, and you must have support. This is part of spiritual merit, is to have these in place. Now, what we are doing with these practices is applying them to three aspects of our being. The body, the physical, which has sensual perceptions and other needs. The mental, which is applying to these physical aspects, but also to concepts and what we call picture making, or the imagination. And then also to the mind itself, which resides in a state of pure consciousness. When we do that, the body, speech, and mind are applied in a way that helps us to come into a single-pointed presence, a single-pointed instant present. And we apply that to the time, the temporal or time situation that we find ourselves in. So to do this, we need to focus on one thing. There are benefits to do this. The first one is to withdraw from the tension of worldly activity. That in itself is a great healing move. The second one is to hold the focus single-pointedly in order to increase energy application. That's the fun of it. And the third is to bring oneself into a desirous place of relaxed awareness, what we call peace. And in the other traditions, this is called nirvana. But that is not our ultimate goal. That is just a point on the way to the higher tantric realizations. So sit with your back straight, head slightly tilted forward, mouth closed. If you can, rest the tongue against the palate. Hands in a comfortable position. I like hands, palms down on the knee, but others recommend the hands in the lap, for instance, right on top of left, thumbs touching. And the fifth position or mudra is to hold the eyes, focusing to start with on a space 2 feet in front, arm's length in front. And when you do that, you relax the gaze. So all of the indications of meditation that we use are eyes open. We might change the gaze, but we don't change or close the eye. The eyes reference us to the space and light in front of the eye as the nature of our pure consciousness. In that way, the outer situation and the now improving inner situation start to merge. And that's another word for Tantra. So again, back straight, head tilted, mouth closed, hands in a comfortable position, eyes in front. Now in this formal position, you bring your attention to your breath. Simply focus on the inhale and exhale. You are focusing on this spontaneous activity, which is actually two things as one thing: breathing, conscious breathing. I might point out that when I first started to practice yoga and meditation, I did just this practice for 6 months. Then I went to find a teacher. It is helpful in this prana yoga practice to count the breath. So to introduce that method, let's count 10 breaths. Now the next thing we do is to incorporate another aspect of breathing called the integration breath. When applying this, you simply focus on the inhale and take a short pause, 1 second, pause, and then exhale. So this is called 3-part breathing. Inhale, pause, exhale. The next level or application of this method is to incorporate light, or what we say color. So we're going to color code the breathing process. When you inhale, you visualize or color the air coming in white or white light. When you pause the middle breath, you see the energy of the extraction process, which is accomplished with the lungs, that energy pervading your whole form body as red light. And when you exhale out your nose, the blue light is permeating space, like the sky. Once you become accomplished or proficient of being able to hold your focus on this method, we move to the next level, which is actually an introduction of highest tantric yoga in the Tibetan tradition. And this is the introduction of sound. Now, sound and light have the same quality function. They both emanate in waves. So we're now going to introduce, with the inhale of the white light, the sound Om, which is used in many traditions. With the middle breath, red light, you're going to introduce the sound Ah, so that that energy with that sound is permeating your body, the physical. And when you exhale the blue light in space, you hear the sound Hum. So now you are integrating, tantrically, the mental process with the physical. But more than that, these three tantric sounds in the Sanskrit tradition of India and Tibet locate you in your extraordinary aspect of consciousness we call pure awareness. And this pure awareness is universal or premortal. Inhale white light, air, Om. Middle breath, red light energy pervading the form Ah. Exhale, blue light filling space, Hum. When you get proficient at this level of practice, then in the informal practice or post-meditational practice, you can integrate these into other activities because you're always breathing. Now we're going to move to the next level of highest tantric yoga by integrating these color code, this software, into our physical process. When you do this, when you're inhaling the white light and the red energy is pervading your body, at that point, take your focus off the breathing and incorporate the three lights within your form body, and you start by indicating a central channel of light, like a tube of energy, running from the top of your head to the bottom of your torso. And you label this life force. Then you indicate in that central channel three spheres of energy or light mentally. So you think or visualize that in your head you have a white sphere of energy or light connecting to the sound Om. Or in Sanskrit, you would actually, if you know that letter, you place it inside in white, a white three-dimensional form letter. But just the sphere will work. Then the red Ah energy, you indicate that or visualize that in your throat area. These energy centers in Sanskrit are called chakra. That middle life force channel is called the Uma. And now you come to the Hum, the exhale. That places the Hum in a blue sphere of light in your heart center, which is located in the center of your chest, in the middle of your body, in the middle of that Uma channel. To activate these three centers, we now bring in speech. Remember, we're moving these energies or purifying with these energies body, speech, and mind. But the real purpose is through this method of practice is to bring them all into the same place at the same time. So now focus on the white sphere in your head and chant Om. Om. Activate the red sphere, the Ah sphere in your throat. Chant Ah. Ah. And the blue sphere in your heart chakra with the sound Hum. Inhale. Om. Now there are many ways to use these three sounds, but we are applying them to the head chakra as the body, the throat chakra as the energies of the body creating powerful speech, that's the Ah, and the wisdom or the realization of these energies as being useful as to everybody as the Hum. Now think or visualize that all three channels are blazing simultaneously with the power of three suns. And then focus on the white Om in your head and see it move, visualize it move down the central channel of your life force and merge with the red Ah in your throat. Then focusing on that chakra center, move the energy downward to the blue Om in your heart chakra. Now you have the body, speech, and mind in a primordial situation in one place. Now disappear that Home. There are three methods for this. One, expand it to the totality of space. The second method is to shrink it to a particle of light, merging with the light of space. And the third method, the most direct, is just simply disappear into voidness. And at that point, in the instant present, you relax. No meditation. And what you have experienced, even for an instant, or maybe a few seconds or minutes, is highest tantric yoga. And this is the application or process to apply it to all your energy centers or chakras within your body, outside to limitless sentient beings, and in certain forms of highest tantric yoga we call the path of skillful means of the bodhisattva, We apply it to symbols. But all of this is only not to gain experience, because that's just more drama, but move beyond the experiences into voidness, a state of mind where there is no drama, no idea of a self or soul can exist. That's it. As my teacher Lama Rinchen says, that's it. Any questions?
Yes, Lama Tashi. Why the white, red, and blue? Why those colors?
White is the color of all life. People that are in the graphic arts learn this, for instance, I learned it in the printing industry. But white is an indication or symbol of the pure nature of your consciousness as an aspect of awareness, which simply means clarity. What we usually think of as clear thinking. If you think clearly, that means you're not involved emotionally with the thinking process. That doesn't mean you're not thinking. This is the first aspect you apply to your body. So that is the sound Om, and that connects to a Buddha energy field in our tradition of Vairocana Buddha, which is displayed in statues and paintings all over the planet. The second aspect, the Ah, is also a state of primordial awareness, which is incorporated in clarity, but represents itself as action. And what we are talking about is the benefit or the auspicious nature of sound itself used in this way as a primordial state of awareness. And in that situation, we have a term for that as an energy field or software, Buddha field, of Amoghasiddhi. And again, that is displayed in statues and paintings all over the world. Then the third aspect of the sound is the Hung in blue. And this is an aspect of unity, a state of no separation, which indicates that there can be no negativity. If there's no negativity, there can be no pain or suffering. If there's no pain or suffering, then you're in a state of bliss. If you're in a state of bliss, you're a Buddha, and that Buddha is called Aksobhaya Buddha. And that is the statue directly off my shoulder. And again, this one is displayed all over the world. But more than those symbols is what does it do to help us emotionally?
Yes.
The first one, the Om, clears up the problem of ignorance, stupidity, bewilderment, and not knowing. The second one is indication of the path of the bodhisattva, that the only purpose for doing this is to benefit others in our environment, in the same way a mother's relationship is for her children. And the third one is the antidote to the most horrible of all human affliction, which is aversion. Because aversion escalates in habit to anger, hatred, rage, a state of total psychosis. And this creates the most uncomfortable situation for sentient beings and our environment. So these three are indicated as not only something primordial, but the actual nature of the universe itself, which has no emotional involvement with any of us ever. And that takes some getting used to. Any other questions?
No, but we are about out of time. Did you want to mention Lama Rinchen's book?
Oh yes, but I also want to give you a disclaimer.
Okay.
You know, when you get medicine, they have these pages that unfold. These processes are very, very powerful. The power goes with the development of compassion and the experiences and realization of insight. And when you do these practices, especially the sexual tantric practices, please try not to have attachment to the process or the experience. Allow that affliction, attachment, which escalates into desire, lust, and greed, to simply disappear, unconditionally. Now you know it's not going to disappear because it's so much fun, all of these practices, and they're joyful. But just remember, attachment is the last affliction of the spiritual accomplishment for a human to become totally mature. And so now I'm going to introduce to you that are interested in these special practices, of which there are thousands, to my teacher Lama Rinpoche's book, which came out about a year ago. And it is called The Story of All of Us, Simply Said. It's just a few pages, but it puts in perfect perspective this, what we call Vajrayana Buddhism, or some say Mahayana, the great vehicle. But he puts it in perspective that applies to anybody that might be spiritually inclined towards this tradition and these methods. Oh, and I might introduce our Buddha dog, Ringo, who of course is totally aware that we're coming to the end of the session and he wants to be a part of it. See, no separation. Ringo, say hi. Hi. So anyway, any other questions?
Not off the top of my head. So the book for Lama Rinchen, we're going to send out a link after this broadcast with the video replay.
Connect to Abby at aloha.net for any information or connection to me or this center. And then, if you have any more questions, we have a few minutes left.
How about dedicating the merit? What's the purpose of that?
We are generating with these practicals physical good health. That is called merit. Mental good health. That's another form of merit. It just means a new habit of virtuous activity which generates positive results in our future. Some people call that karma, but in the pure nature of mind, even karma disappears. But the merit that we generate is by habit and intention of these practices to benefit limitless being. So we say this prayer at the end of every practice in the same way I said the refuge prayer at the beginning of this session tonight. And it goes like this. First we say it in Sanskrit. Dewa di nirdu da chakya champo drugyarne gowa shinkin marupa ye sala goparsho Sanjay Kushu Nimpai Jim Ladam Choni Maker Nimpai Jim Ladam Hindu Miche Dumpai Jim Laki Chitargo Monam Drupar Show. And in Canadian and American, by this virtue, having realized this Mahamudra, pure nature of mind, may I quickly establish all beings without a single exception in this state. Through the blessings of the Buddhas who obtained the three kayas, the body, speech, and mind in one, and through the blessing of the unchanging truth of this Dharma as being timeless, and through the blessing of the unwavering aspirations of the Sangha, that's us, people who are doing these practices, may this and all dedication prayers be accomplished. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. May all beings be established in bliss and have emotional stability. Ah, human.
Ah, human.
Yuchi-che and mahalo. Mahalo means thank you in Hawaiian. Yuchi-che is thank you in Tibetan.
Thank you, Lama Tashi. So for anybody watching, for everybody watching, like I said, we're going to send out an email with the video link. If you want to know more, if you want to connect with Lama Tashi directly, you can connect with him at kawaidharma.org. If you'd like to make a donation in gratitude in honor of Lama Tashi and his time this evening, there will be links under this video, and there's also links on the webinar page as well at authentictantra.com. And ideally, we'd love to do more Dharma classes with Lama Tashi and support everybody in their spiritual practice as well as their sexual practice. So thank you so much, Lama Tashi.
And connect to Jacques and Davy as much as you can.
Thank you.
Because they are there. And that's it.
Right on. All right, well, blessings. Good night, everybody, and we'll connect soon.
Omani Pemi Hong, Omani Pemi Hong.
Omani Pemi Hung, Omani Pemi Hung.
Omani Pemi Hong, Omani Pemi Hong.